You may think that making cake pops has nothing to do with writing a book, but that would be overthinking it. And that's actually a question I get a lot. How can I stop overthinking my novel? It can be easy enough to say, oh, just draft out an outline, but that doesn't actually solve the problem, because what if you start overthinking your outline? Today, I'm going to tell you exactly what baking cake pops actually has to do with writing a novel, and the first thing that I want to talk about is avoiding spiraling during the planning phase. Making the decision to film this was actually a little bit of an ADHD impulse, so I prepped everything before I actually started filming. The thing is, you don't really need an outline to write your novel. It'll make your life so much easier to actually make an outline for your novel, even so much as just knowing what to put in a 3-act structure. But when it comes to actually writing your novel, the best thing to do is just to get it done. You may have heard the statistic that 97% of people who start writing never finish. But the truth of the matter is that 15% of all of the Americans who have said that they think they have a good idea for a novel have actually started writing their book. And only 6% have even gotten halfway through. Even if you just write for 5 minutes a day, you're doing more work than most of the people who don't even start writing their book. You're going to have to forgive me. My kitchen is not perfectly aesthetic, but we're all moms, or we have ADHD. I think that you guys understand. We'll kind of clean as we go, because that is my mantra. The kitchen gremlins come out, and now we're going to clean as we go. You're never going to feel ready, and I feel like that's said everywhere, but honestly, it is so important. When I became a mom, I knew that I wasn't going to have all of the tools that I needed. So just like I'm still in the process of learning to be a mom, I'm still in the process of making my story perfect. You don't need to write well, you just need to write. Outlining helps the whole thing come together, just like you can't bake a cake without a recipe. I suppose you could, and they did it before recipes existed, but it was probably much harder. It took longer for them to figure out everything that needed to come together. It's just a matter of saving yourself time, but even things that seem super complicated are not that bad. When you bake bread, it's literally 4 ingredients, maybe 5 if you're adding a little bit extra to it, but that's a super simple recipe, but it still saves you so much time in figuring out how much flour to add and how much salt and yeast and everything. Now, once your cake goes in the oven, you don't open the oven. That lets all the heat out and hurts the baking process. In the same way, you don't edit during your writing process. I know some people really swear by editing as they go, but I have found that with ADHD, that just distracts you from what you're doing. I think it's so important that each step of the writing process has its separate designated time. When you are writing your book and editing at the same time, you're using 2 different parts of your brain. Everyone knows you shouldn't multitask. Wait. Actually, I think I might need this for the buttercream. Now, maybe you're struggling to make headway in your story, and you're just not sure where to go, but there's a scene around the 3/4 point of the novel that you're really excited to write. Just like I'm cleaning this bowl in order to make the buttercream that's going to help keep the cake pops together later, you can still write future scenes when you haven't even gotten there yet. And in fact, many pros recommend doing this because when you're excited to write a scene, you're more likely to write it quickly, and it'll really help you to get your momentum back if you feel stuck. I almost just walked out while the cake was still in the oven. Now, while the cake is baking, it's pretty typical to set a timer. And this is where it's really important to just get a little bit of work done. I've talked about this before, but word counts have been really important in my writing process, but I've been finding timers to be much more helpful and honestly much more productive. I think this has to do with
the concept of nice goals that Ali Abdaal shared in his book, Feel Good Productivity. The purpose of nice goals is that they make your goals less rigid. Smart goals are really rigid because of how they're presented. And I have definitely fallen victim to finding out that smart goals really just worked against me and made me focus on the wrong things. Nice goals make it easier for me to enjoy the process when I do it. If you haven't heard about nice goals are near-term, input-based, controllable, and energizing. By near-term, that means that they are daily or weekly objectives, and they're centered around processes rather than a final outcome. And what this really means in terms of setting a timer is that your daily objective could be to write for 30 minutes a day, or even just 5 minutes a day. And that way you know you're getting a little bit of progress done on each of your goals without really stressing yourself out about it. Remember, slow and steady wins the race. Now I want to talk a little bit more about overthinking. Fear likes to disguise itself as something else. Anxiety can trick us into thinking it's a different problem. If you think about your overthinking more as anxiety, then you can reframe your approach to it. Now, I'm not saying this is easy. Recently, I have been feeling so overwhelmed about my book release and publishing my book that it's definitely been making me less productive, and I'm starting to overthink the characters and wondering if certain things just aren't good enough or just aren't ready. I keep wanting to add new scenes, and I do think that those scenes are important, but the most important thing is that I take action. The best way to conquer your fear is by taking an action, because once something is in motion, it usually stays in motion. That's just one of the laws of physics. One of the best ways you can do this is just by starting to write on the page. You could write something simple like, "This is the first sentence." You could write something simple like, "This is the first sentence of the story," or "Once upon a time." Suddenly, there's not a blank page there anymore. You don't have to overthink your novel, you can just get started. So having little tricks like this can be pretty helpful for actually getting started. I know today's video was a little different than what you're used to. If you enjoyed it, then please let me know in the comments. Let me know what quill you're using today with #Quillies, and tell me which of these was your favorite. I'll have all of the recipes linked down below. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video, and I'll see you next week.